Have you checked the children? Your little master.
Hi, I'm Chucky. Wanna play?
Sometimes that is better.
You're gonna need a bigger boat.
Long days and pleasant nights, fellow travelers, along the path of the beam. I am known on this level of the tower. Sai Fuego, and if it please you, join me here for a bit of palaver on Hail to Stephen King. That is Reezy, y'all, and obviously, bienvenidos and welcome to the horror show and our continuing relaunch of awesomeness for this new phase of the YouTube destination that we are so very humbled and honored that you have stuck with us after all of these years, and also stuck with this Hail to Stephen King program that has been going for over 4 at this particular point. But today, we are talking about the Pablo Larraín, I believe is his name, the guy who is essentially directing this new Stephen King adaptation of Bada Blingy. That's right. LISEY'S story. And so there are essentially 2 episodes that are available right now on Apple TV Plus, and I really have enjoyed most of what I have seen from them, whether it was the court battle thing, or well, I guess I didn't like Cherry very much now that I think about it, the one that had little Spider-Man kid Tom Holland in it. But Servant like really set a benchmark in my estimation for the fact that even though they don't have like an abundance of content compared to like a Netflix or even like a Prime or an HBO Max, but their content is primarily very quality. And so when I had initially heard that J.J. Abrams was teaming with Pablo, and even more so the involvement of Sai King, El Rey, as I so affectionately call him, with this show, I had definitive high hopes for this 8-episode adaptation of LISEY'S story. So, as I said, there's 2 episodes that are available now, and that seems to be kind of the process with a lot of streaming shows now. So it's not quite the Netflix model where it all drops at once, but it's also not quite where, like with Castle Rock on Hulu, for instance, where, you know, you had to wait like week in and week out, at least with the first season. I think when they got to the second season that had that great performance from Lizzie Kaplan, they dropped a couple episodes right off the bat and then cruised from there on the weekly basis. But as far as formatting goes, they are following that where they're giving you more than just a morsel. They're giving you just a little bit more to hopefully, you know, like satiate your appetites or whatever. But I'm going to primarily stick to the first episode of this because I don't want to spoil anything, and this is more so just first impressions of LISEY'S story on Apple TV and what they are doing with it so far. Now, I've gone on record on this show quite a few times and on Horror Show regular, like just more normal content, not this specialized show, to say that I was stoked about this. Not that I absolutely adored this book, but upon my second read, it actually really just cut me more so to the core with its romanticism. And it's not that it wasn't apparent initially, it was just, I think upon that first read, and the same thing happened when I was recently doing End of Watch. First reads, I feel like, especially when there's expectation involved, you know, I feel like often as somebody who has done both, you know, literary and film and television criticism, comic books as well, and other things like that. But like being a critic, I feel like it is tough not to gravitate towards things that you didn't like about something. And I feel like upon revisits, and this was discussed recently in the Hail to Stephen King Facebook group actually, I feel like with revisits and just having kind of a fresh set of eyes, you're more appreciative of the positives as opposed to narrowing in on the negatives. And that was definitely the case with the second time that I read LISEY'S story. But to the show, and just, you know, spoiler-free first impressions. The show is going to be going weekly. As I said, the finale is going to be July 16th, from what I understand. So, yeah, we've got, you know, over a month of new episodes that will be coming in the coming weeks. But as far as first impressions go, you know, Pablo is a hell of a director, and he directs all of these, if I'm not mistaken. And as we saw from the extended trailer, beautiful looking show, like majestic, legitimately. You know, we don't get as much in his other Scott's other sort of world, so to speak, without going into too much detail. But there are hints of it in the first episode, and even more so than that, like just the prettiness of the presentation, whether it's the flashbacks to their wedding, or whether it's like even the beautiful home that's lived in, and even Amanda, Lisey's sister, who's like kind of psychotic and stuff. Just everything is shot with, like, the shot selection, even some of the overheads that we have in that first episode. I mean, when Scott is doing the groundbreaking of that library that he finances, I mean, this is a beautiful looking show. And with a cast that includes Clive Owen as Scott, Lisey being played by Julianne Moore in the title role, and then also even Joan Allen. And I forget the name of the actor who plays Dashmiel, whatever his name is, the guy from the university who was essentially trying to get to Scott's unproduced manuscripts. I know that he was on Fringe, I think, maybe not Fringe. God damn, I can't think. I know that I recognized him immediately, and I know he is prominent and has been in various things, but. And then also Jennifer Jason Leigh, we get a little more of her in the second episode once we get to that, and Amanda has had her latest psychotic break, one that Scott knew, very ironically was gonna happen. But and then Dane DeHaan as Jim, he was perfect casting because that dude plays creepy perfectly, and I know a lot of people didn't watch Quibi, whatever the hell we were calling that streaming service, but he did a thing with, I want to say her name is Mackay Monroe, but the lead actress from It Follows. They have this, it was a fragmented sort of story where he was like a creepy, like, Uber passenger, and he was exceptional in that. And even back to Chronicle, man, I mean, that guy has perfected creepy. And he's got a few scenes in this where he's like standing with the cardboard cutout of Clive Owen, Scott Landon, and he's just taking these. It's not like sexual photos, but it is like a very. It's very strange. It's not like a love in that regard, I don't think, but who knows where, because King, with actually writing the teleplays for all of these episodes, he has said that he kept this story very safeguarded because it's his favorite story, and we all know it's a love letter to Tabby. And just to give some correlation and context for those who may not know, the reason he even had the inception for this story in the first place was because after the accident. So I thought initially it was, but it was so far removed. This book came out in October of 2006. So yes, it was many years after he was run over. So this was a different sort of like crisis of confidence, like staring down death's door and seeing it, if it's still locked or whatever. But yeah, King had pneumonia in the mid-2000s and he almost died. And I guess in his time in the hospital, Tabby took it upon herself to rearrange his office, and yes, it's a well-known bit, but it's just very interesting the way the inspiration and the inception of that came from his return home and seeing just how different things were, and he's just like, no, this isn't right. And I would imagine, yes, he repositioned things. Maybe as Tabby seems like a very just soothing and calming and supportive force for King, and yet also calls him out at times too, and is his number one critic, to be fair, as he has mentioned her as many different times. But yeah, man, I would imagine The Office, it found its way to being somewhere in the middle between the rearrangement and previous proximity of everything. But nonetheless, King writing every episode of this and wanting to expand upon the novel itself. And yes, with Bull Hunts and some of the weird language that Scott and Lisey speak to each other, but I must say, as much as I enjoyed things from a performance standpoint, as much as I loved it from a visual standpoint, people have been very critical about Sai King adapting his own work, and I don't always know if that's best. Really, for me, was the fact that I was watching this with Lady Catherine, my other half, and she felt like the kind of scattered narrative that they pursued this with was a slight bit confusing, and there's a lot of flashbacks. There are a lot of flashbacks, and so, you know, we obviously join Lisey in the here and now, or at least as far as the context of the story goes, but then there is like just lots of these little bit vignettes that they go back to reinforcing the love, because, you know, we're 2 years removed from Scott's passing, okay? And so, yes, a maniacal fan, and that's another King nod, that the fact that this psycho is like, you stole my stories, you stole my ideas. It's a theme that he has gone back to quite a few times at this particular, you know, just pivotal point in his career, seeing this resurgence of adaptations and the immense amount of them since the King Assans commenced in 2017. And so, yeah, rabid fan comes, shoots him, survives that, but yeah, since you joined the story with her still in mourning, you know, a few years later. But that's the thing, when you lose your other half, when you have somebody that you were so invested in and so supportive of, and it's a very symbiotic and, you know, kind of situation in that regard. And so, yes, Julianne Moore plays the mourning woman to just pinpoint perfection. She really does. Her performance is fantabulous in this. The few scenes that we do get with her and Clive are very good. They go all the way back to Children of Men. I know they were on screen together for that one. I'm not sure if they ever, you know, just rejoined on anything besides that. But I thought their chemistry was terrific in that film by Alejandro, I believe. So yeah, man, they have a rapport, I think, is one of the big things. And I gotta give a shout out to Matty Jorson, though, because of the fact that he did mention that at the beginning of that first episode, I do feel like there were some audio mixing issues, because it is these dreamy, kind of flashbacky. Now there is one scene in particular where Clive just mouths "I love you" to Julianne Moore, where they're sitting at the dinner table and just gazing into each other's eyes and getting lost in each other. So I guess the overall impressions so far of this is that the acting is great, especially Joan Allen. Joan Allen is also chewing up that scenery too, man, as Amanda Lisey's sister. Jennifer Jason Leigh, I feel like we're going to get more from her character. The name of the third sister, I forget. It's eluding me at the particular moment. But acting on point. You know Julianne Moore is going to bring it. Okay, so that was, like, there was nothing unexpected there. But it's the supporting players, I think, that are really going to push this forward and make it a more nuanced and interesting sort of situation. You know, the Joan Allens, the Dane DeHaans, and, you know, the Dashmiel actor who was eluding me, damn it. But yeah, it's a familiar sort of King story in the fact that, okay, we have more obsessive fandom going on, and also the aspect of mourning and loss and stuff. But masterfully acted across the board and beautifully shot. But once again, I feel like the structuring, that, like, this almost feels like those who are big fans of this book, I feel like, will be very, very satisfied with what they're seeing, especially with you know, just the immense amount of money that was presumably put into this and getting top-notch talent and stuff. But those like Catherine may watch this and be a little confused significantly with that aforementioned structuring. And so, yeah, I don't know. I have faith, but once again, it does boil into that mindset of the fact that, you know, should King actually adapt his work? I did a whole video about this, a lengthy one at that. I think it was like 25-30 minute discussion about when King has adapted his work previously. Like, when he wrote Cell, I didn't think his altered ending was better. Hell to the no, in fact, and I love that book. And then, you know, Pet Sematary is probably the high mark of him adapting his own stuff, because I really love Mary Lambert's film. And so, but then again, lots of his other stuff that he's, you know, written the teleplays for, it was mostly the miniseries stuff, you know, and like The Stand is another great instance where I feel like he adapted his work quite good. But aside from Pet Sematary, I feel like the high marks of his stuff, probably Storm of the Century, but then again, that was specifically written for screen, and it was an original idea, so it wasn't like Rose Red, where he was taking, Winchester Mansion stuff and, Haunting of Hill House stuff and trying to, like, Frankenstein that shizzle. And, boy, I'm just not the biggest fan of Kingdom Hospital. I just think about it briefly, and I'm just like, and Anteater stuff and the weirdness there. But this show, it has massive potential. Okay, and that is the biggest thing. I feel like he reeled stuff in a little bit better in the second episode, but I was really trying to give just fresh first impressions here. It was originally going to be myself and Marsha Parker, because I really, really wanted a lady's perspective, especially, with the fact that Lacey's story for me, it kind of is in that same vein of in the 90s when King was writing stuff like Rose Madder and, Dolores Claiborne and, he was really primarily focused on Gerald's Game, obviously. How could I forget that one? He was trying to write from that female perspective, and I feel like Tabby probably helps him significantly with that sort of situation. Even back to Carrie, obviously. She helped him have a career by pulling something out of the trash. But, I see vast potential with this show, and with all of these just very capable people in play, I don't see how it could be a full-on failure, but I was very, very slightly underwhelmed, okay? Very, very slightly, and I feel like more so than anything, it was because the first episode, it gave us these pillars of conflict that we're going to have, with Jim going off the rails eventually, and without spoiling stuff, and, Dashmiel and his, kind of nefarious perspective, but not the full-on antagonist, and the family dynamic with Lacey, and, all of these flashbacks and remembrances, and she's on this bull hunt now, and she goes from the shovel to, the address book or whatever it was, and also just Scott's insight and just, predictive nature. Most notably with what happens with Amanda, I thought that was, it's all very well done, but I feel like I was more on board and understanding because of the fact that I have read and greatly appreciate this book. It's not like a top 10 or probably even 20 King for me, but it's a book very much just brimming with sentimentality, and it definitely has its heart in the right place, and I feel like the series does as well. It's 15 years later for King since even writing this, and so for that reason, yes, I guess he is approaching it with that fresh set of eyes with some of his, it's really only minor retooling, and it's more so from a structural side, but I'm just trying to objectively just give note and concern to those like Catherine who would be approaching it completely blind, as opposed to being familiar with the story already and then coming at it with a fresh set of eyes. So we don't really give like ratings, so to speak, like I do on Fuego-tainment, but I have to say that this is a impressive series from a acting standpoint, from a visual standpoint, and it has great potential to expand upon the intriguing mythology of this gift that they don't really go into excessive explanation about, that Scott Landon possessed, and he gets briefly with Lacey into the fact that his brother and his father were aware and capable and stuff, and there is the thrilling bloody moment without getting into too many specifics, but I'm just trying to satiate interest and see how people who like you, for instance, who are chilling and watching this video, if you read the book before, were you satisfied? However, if you had no familiarity with the source material whatsoever, were you a little bit lost? Because that is really my biggest concern with this. And I know, that with 8 episodes, I think that this show might be better as a binge than just, waiting and watching these first 2 episodes and then doing a week to week. I don't know, certain stories, they just lend themselves better to that sort of fragmented, structuring and just having that break, as far as episodic stuff goes. But that's the thing. Mandalorian, for instance, which I think was definitely one of the shows that repopularized going back to a weekly format. The thing about that show is that even though everything connects, it was almost like each week was like a different level in a video game or something. It's like, oh, you're on to, like, I'm playing Contra, and now I'm in this world, and then, you know, the next week or the next level, I'm in this world. And so this is a little bit different. I feel like Stephen King stories especially, they are bingeable in the fact that, I mean, look at this. This is, I think it's almost a 500-page book, if I remember correctly. Over 500 pages, in fact. And so, yeah, man, I do feel like sometimes interest and engagement can suffer depending upon the story that you're actually trying to tell. And that is definitely something, like, I could see viewers who have not read this book, they watch a couple episodes and they're just like, oh. And also the fact that it's on Apple TV Plus, and regrettably, I know that a lot of people do not have that. I mean, granted, if you're an Apple person like I am, you know, you've got an iPhone or, you know, an iMac in there, you know, MacBook Pro, whatever the hell. If that's what you know, do your business with, or just use for, you know, pleasure and recreation, whatever, as far as digital stuff goes, then you have access to that. But there's a lot of people who, they've got their Galaxies, and, you know, they've got their Dells or HPs or whatever. They're PC people, and they're not Apple phone people. And so for that reason, yeah, I kind of wish it was on a different destination in that regard, but hey, it is what it is. We have to accept that and just be cool with it and stuff. But yeah, man, once again, lots of potential, and with this terrific cast, I don't see this necessarily as being bad. It's kind of failure proof. However, only time will tell if it truly succeeds as far as adaptations go, and hey, only time will tell in this regard. But damn, Dane DeHaan is probably still the standout for me. Perfect casting for this. And the Charlie, the Choo-Choo bit, I did not want to forget that, where he's sitting in the library, and it's a library that's got, you know, financed and stuff. And being, you know, years removed from his death at that particular point, he's sitting there and he's reading, and the librarian's like, sir, we're closing, and blah, 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 and it's this older lady. And he's like, did you know that this was the first book that Scott ever read? And it's Charlie the Choo-Choo, and it's such a funny bit, and that he's like, yeah, he was 4 years old, and it just induced inspiration within him, and that's where it just changed his life, so to speak. And where DeHaan has this little, like, flip out moment where he's like, you should be prominently displaying this book. He like knocks a bunch of stuff off of the top of one of the shelves, and very similar to the way I have that book by Beryl Evans so prominently displayed. He demands that a similar thing be done with the book, and so it was a funny little Easter egg. You'll see your fair share of those throughout, but I have hope for this, even though I wasn't completely blown away by it. I mean, that's the thing. I wasn't completely blown away by this book, but I gained an appreciation for it. And so, yeah, once again, if you watched those first couple of episodes, what were your impressions? What were your first thoughts as far as King's screenplay, as far as the performances from this celebrated cast, as far as the directing and the great work by the DP in constructing something so beautiful? It's so colorful. With this other level of the tower, this other realm, whatever, this thinny ability to jump through that Scott has, it makes the utmost sense that that would be the case. But bottom line, I am intrigued, but the mildest bit underwhelmed. So that is going to do it for the proceedings today. I extend a grande gracias. I have been Jaime Fuego, and you can find me on all social media sectors like Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, here on the YouTubies. And just to remind, the book of the month, chilling right back there on the first Tuesday in July. We will be discussing Cujo for its, 35th anniversary, I believe it is. Or excuse me, is it 40th anniversary? Good Lord, I think it is 40th. Goodness. Yeah, it is totally 40th. That book is older than even me. So yes, if you have any inclination, definitely check that book out. We will be doing a live show discussing it on the first Tuesday of July. And I have been Jaime and Fuego. You can find me on all social media sectors like Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, here on YouTube. Most recently, I had the aforementioned Lady Catherine on, and we discussed the new Disney live-action film, Cruella. Woof. That's all I got to say about that. And yes, if you have any interest in further palaver, Hail to Stephen King, the Facebook group. It's the one thing that gets me on the fake book. And yes, great group of over 1,000 in the Ka-Tet there. And yes, great palaver. Always appreciated. Like, share, subscribe. Y'all know the Dreezy here on the YouTube game. And yes, everybody, that's it. Until the Wheel of Ka comes around once more. Hasta luego, San amigos, constant readers and viewers alike. Say thank you. Hopefully we share more of this palaver sooner rather than later. And until that instance occurs, remember to stay scared and read Stephen King, obviously. Read LISEY'S story if you feel the inclination. But yes, I'll give you a pass. You can also watch Stephen King too.